Jim, do you want me to drop it on him?
I'm still standing.
Is that a yes?
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, hello, and welcome to CD-ROMP, a brotherly stroll through the PC games of the 90s and early 2000s. My name's Bob.
I'm Jim.
And welcome again to another week. This week, we played the game... Jim?
Oh, you're waiting for me to
Well,
say.
you are on this show. I don't want to really...
Well, I mean, in a way, we're all on
I don't want
to
to come in heavy on you, but...
Well,
yeah. What's the name of the game, Jim?
Command E Conquer.
True. And before we get into that, because I just wanted to mention it,
Sure.
I just wanted to do one quick note from the last episode.
Okay.
Bit of a correction. I was thinking about it this morning, and I was feeling very embarrassed for us. We are or are not into brewing beer and the things that come with it. Right. Okay. So
we are or are not.
We are
That's
or are
correct.
not. Yeah, you can confirm
That's
one
correct.
of them. Right. So I was thinking about in the episode we said acidophilus. I think that's the yeast they use in yogurt. And I was like, wait a second, acidophilus? That's definitely, if it ends in that us sound, it's definitely bacteria. Like lactobacillus, streptococcus. So that's probably the last.
Acidophilus ends in O-U-S.
Whatever the
Lactobacillus ends in U-S. So your etymology argument is wrong.
Are you sure that's really how it's spelled?
Yep.
So it's definitely yeast and not lactic acid bacteria. You're sure?
I'm
No,
gonna
he's
Google
Googling
it
right
now.
Okay, while you do that, so maybe we owe you a correction apology and maybe we don't. Jim's going to find out. I think I'm right.
You are correct.
Yeah, it sounded like it didn't sound like a yeast.
It is Lactobacillus acidophilus.
There you go. For those of you,
a bacteria.
if for some reason you're curious as to the kind of yeast they use in beer, it's Saccharomyces cerevisiae, or sugar-eating yeast. Something like that, if you're curious. Anyway, that's a different show. Welcome to CD-ROMP once more. Now that our apology's over with. This week we played Command & Conquer, and let me tell
I
you
actually
how
don't. I actually don't apologize.
Jim
I'd like to
doesn't
clear that
apologize, but he's near my apology, at least digitally.
up. No, I'm not sure where yours
He
is.
can
but
neither
mine's not
confirm nor
anywhere.
deny his digital assertedness. I can only think of the word in Spanish at the moment. That's pretty impressive. I don't know a lot of Spanish practice. Anyway, here's how this podcast works. Every week we'll take turns between the two hermanos picking a different game. The other person doesn't know what the game is going to be till it's announced on the podcast before it. AKA at the end of this podcast, I'll tell Jim what the game is for next week, which I actually didn't fucking think about and plan that well. So as I'm going,
Would you like to
No. I have an idea of what I want to do, so I'm hoping when I say it, it's going to make sense. Okay, I had an idea in my head. Okay, and we take the week. We play each game for 3 hours, unless you beat the game, at which point you could stop early if you'd like.
I mean, or if you get it,
Or
like if you get it,
or if Jim's just decided, yes, I get it. And then,
like if you get it, you can.
if you're
don't
in
need to
like
run
a
out the clock.
monkey, escape from monkey, curse of what's the one? I can never remember which monkey game
I'm
it is.
not sure at this point which
I
one we
know
did
it's
or
the
did not
fourth
play.
monkey game, not
Or the third.
No, it's the fourth. Either way, the idea is 3 hours, and you can play along at home. By once you tell you the game, you have a week to play 3 hours in the next game. And the nice thing about it, at least so far, the games have been relatively cheap. I think the average price has been around $8, and we've been getting them all on Steam until Captain Chim came along this week and picked a game that has a remastered version, which cost actually a few more shekels than we're used to.
Yeah,
which is
I thought
probably
you were gonna say it wasn't on Steam.
Oh no, it wasn't.
Very much.
Yeah,
I made sure it was on
but
Steam.
it was very much $20.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, I mean, it was worth it. Why don't we? We'll start there, and I'll pass the
I mean,
baton
that's
to
a
you.
bit of a. I mean, that's a bit of a.
Oh, yeah,
Jeez.
sorry, that's leading. Sustained overroll. Jim, why don't you start us off there?
Yeah, hold on. Ugh, my organs. Okay.
Great.
So I think we usually do some background
Yes.
talking about the game and such.
Whoever picks the game has to do background research.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I picked the game, Command and Conquer.
Okay.
1995 RTS.
Explain what
Right?
that means.
So real-time strategy game.
Right.
So I did look a little bit into RTSs in general because it said that like this game was what really made like the culture, video game culture, whatever, define it as a specific game genre.
Interesting.
So it wasn't the first RTS. I mean, I was reading a little bit into it, and there's like things like, oh, like this thing in Japan was the first RTS, this thing in like 1989, this thing in 1982.
Wow, that's pretty early, 1982.
Yeah, I mean, I skimmed.
Well,
You
let
know
me
what I mean?
ask you this, if I may.
So no, you may not.
Okay. Proceed then.
So the game was by Westwood Studios, if memory serves, which eventually got bought out by EA in 1998, something like that.
So 2 years after the game came out?
3 years.
3 years.
So this game came after they came out with a game based off of the books Dune, I believe. I mean, it's named Dune. I'd assume it's named after the book series Dune.
You know what? I actually heard about this game when I was listening to Stay a While and Listen, The History of Blizzard. They were talking about that game. Also, I tried watching the movie the other day and I fell asleep. It was super weird.
The original?
Yeah, I have to try again.
The original.
With the mayor of
because they're coming out with...
Yeah.
He's like the star, isn't he?
Kyle
I haven't seen it.
MacLachlan, I think his name is.
They're coming out with the new one. Is finally coming out this year, next year.
Have you seen?
Like
well, you sound like you've seen the whole first movie.
No, I haven't seen any of it. Not even a trailer. Yes, I just know
I
he's
won't
in
say
it.
anything, but he's in it and he's young.
No, that's all I know anyway.
Yeah.
So I was gonna say. So
it's so weird. Sorry, it's extremely
I didn't see anything
weird.
about like Dune 1, but they're very famous for making Dune 2, which I guess is like a more runaway hit.
Okay. Was there a Dune 2 movie or do we know? Doesn't matter.
No, I think this one will be Dune 2 movie.
Okay.
I honestly don't know anything about the Dune movie series beyond that they're remaking it and that people really like the books.
Okay, and that it's incredibly strange.
Correct.
Add that to your memory.
Yes, because I think there was an entire like ecosystem and like multiverse that this person created. I forget the name of the author. Because there's an entire Dune book series.
Okay.
But this is not supposed to be about Dune. Anyway.
Yeah. Welcome to Dunecast.
So they made Dune, and I suppose probably, and Dune 2, notably, right?
Suppose probably.
Yeah.
Facts.
Right. So I was reading very briefly that this was like a follow-up game, Command and Conquer. They wanted to make another like RTS,
which they didn't know was called RTS at the time.
Right. It wasn't a thing. So it was a development from turn-based combat and turn-based strategy, because that was the only combat that was like originally. It was like you hit and then you like, you know, kind of like in D&D, you roll for initiative to get what the turns are for combat. This person attacks, and this person attacks.
Have you ever played a turn-based strategy game? Video game? I don't think I ever have.
No, I think it's all
super.
Well,
old.
I mean, Oregon Trail technically is a turn. Is it? I mean, it's a strategy game.
The computer doesn't get it. I guess it did kind of get a turn. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, any
I don't
strategy
like that
game
you said
before,
that, and it was hard for me to disprove it quickly.
Right. I don't know if I'm true about that at all. Right. So this was, they wanted to make another RTS, which wasn't, you know, a thing. They just wanted to make another strategy game.
Yeah.
But apparently they completely went in a different direction because supposedly the developers were tired of making things in sand.
Fair enough.
So they made all like entirely new terrain, and then they came up with like this whole the whole game is about like this UN sanctioned global defense force going up against like Emperor Zod.
No. It's called, hold on,
it's called the Nod or something like that.
Nod.
I don't remember if that's an acronym or just a thing, but it's supposed to be this ancient secret society that like has presence in all these bad countries too. And so it's the UN Global Defense Force against like the Nod.
Jim, can I mention something? Because this is the perfect time.
Sure.
Okay, 2 things about the Nod. Okay. Founded, date unknown. Exaggerated reports place the Brotherhood's founding before 1800 BC.
Yeah, it's ancient.
That's pretty fucking ancient.
Well, when your logo is a scorpion,
yeah, those have been around for a while. And then I got these from the manual, which I read, which happens to be.
I will never read the manual.
I'll talk about that later.
Sure. Affiliations.
So the affiliations for the GDI, which I think is an inside joke because GDI on the internet means God damn it, GDI. God damn it.
I don't know.
Nod affiliations. You ready for this list of affiliations they have? The Irish Republican Army, Islamic Jihad, Khmer Rouge, and others.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Not a good group to be rolling with.
No, but that was the point.
Okay,
right?
yeah. So all terrorists have come together.
So speaking of possible or probable or not at all references.
Sure.
I don't know what level you got up to, but it was one of like the first 3 levels. So I'm assuming you got that far.
Yeah, I think
there was a reporter.
5. A
reporter out in the field. He was. It was either his name or the place he was in was called Bialystok. Which, if you remember, is from The Producers.
I don't remember that.
One of the person's name is Bialystok.
Really?
I forget. Yeah.
Oh. I don't think I've seen that as many times as you have.
No, I've only seen it like twice.
Wow, that's impressive. You remember that. You normally remember nothing.
I know, but it's a name that you don't hear.
All I can remember is Springtime for Hitler.
I was just watching. Yeah, I was just Nathan Lane was just in a show that I've been watching. So
Springtime for Hitler is the kind of song that's really catchy and very difficult to sing in public.
Right. Or it's hard to get away with.
Yeah, you have to kind of change. Anyway, we won't go down that road.
Right.
Give the producers. Well, we're actually talking about the new version of the producers with Nathan Lane
true.
and
Will Ferrell and what's his name?
Matthew Broderick.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. But anyway, back to the nod.
Anyway,
yeah.
So the game is you're part of the Global Defense Force or whatever it is, GDI.
Well, you could pick
Defense Initiative. Yes, right.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I even forgot about that because I picked the good guys.
I picked the bad guys. That's actually perfect.
Yeah.
If only we were playing that. We didn't have to.
Yeah, we didn't plan it at all. So
we actually didn't. He sounded like we did. We actually didn't.
No, we really didn't.
We really didn't.
We put a very strict embargo on talking about the game.
Jim, let me tell you something. I'm done being a pussy in my life. All right.
Whoa.
I picked the Alliance on WoW, and I've regretted it ever since.
So did I.
You know, now I'm always picking the bad guys.
No, I still pick the good guys sometimes.
Jim, because you're not 33 yet. Once you hit 33, you're like, fuck them all. Bad guys for life,
I've been 33 for like 7 years.
No, you jumped over it. Now you have to come back.
No. Oh, I got to circle back.
Yeah, you hit your 40s first before your 30s.
Yeah.
And now
I knocked those babies out.
Now you got to do 30s remastered.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a good tie-in to maybe mention.
Command and Conquer remastered
Yeah,
version.
that's what we played.
Yeah, so instead of so for most of these games, right, they were originally run on like DOS, and instead of us trying to, or like Windows 95, or it depends on the release, right? I
know that said it required Windows 95. It could have been using DOS, but I don't know that for sure because some of the games that we played did use DOS.
Right. So I'm just saying in general in the games we play because of that era, right? It's either going to be DOS 95, 98, or
something.
Hopefully we won't have to get into like a Mac OS emulator.
Yeah, no, we probably won't.
Right. So we don't want to be emulating those old operating systems. So we try and find games that we can find a current old version of.
Well, we try and find them on Steam. Let's just cut. Let's just cut to the chase.
Well, not necessarily, but that's the easiest way to find them, right?
Yeah.
So that's how we've been playing them.
Yeah.
But, I don't remember where the beginning of the sentence started.
I know. Do you mind if I jump in real quick? Can you
yeah.
Just a micro point.
Sure.
Jim had found the remastered version of Command & Conquer, which includes Command & Conquer and the first Red Alert. And it works for our purposes because it's very comfortable to use on our newer hardware. It works really nice. It lets you have the full screen and everything like that. But it has all the options to swap things back to the original way.
Yeah, so it lets you unrender the graphics.
Which I liked it way better that way.
Oh my God. I switched one time in game. I turned on the new graphics and then back. I was like, oh, that's what that squiggly thing is supposed to be?
Well, I remember once you change it on, it looks too weird. And it had a weird key assigned to it, spacebar to go back and forth. Yeah, they tell you at the beginning, they're like, use spacebar to switch between
I didn't see that part.
New version and classic. And I was like, that's weird. Every so often I would do it. But I liked the older version better.
No, I switched and then I was like, oh, I guess this is cool. I was like, I switched to the old version. I was like, yeah, this is better.
Yeah, it was better.
It just feels like more tactile.
But
somehow.
It's a really nice. Although I would say we probably lost out a tiny degree by having everything so nice and 4K and easy to use. We kept it pretty true by being able to switch graphics and sound and everything back. Did you just switch the sound back as well?
I guess I switched everything that I could.
So then,
yeah. So I mean, I don't specifically remember. It was like the first thing that I did.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have gotten any added benefit to like
sometimes the jank of the moment.
No, to having it like windowed mode on my computer or like not scale all the way to full screen. Yeah. I mean, it would because once you're locked in, you don't really notice anyway. So it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah. I think it's a very small percent, maybe negligible. We'll say.
Yeah, I think like in actual gameplay, it wouldn't have mattered. I wouldn't.
Yeah, it was certainly the same game. Certainly, we had the ability to make it look and sound and play the same.
Right. So the game. So we can go over the basic structure of the game and maybe
Sure.
the storyline to some extent.
Yes.
So the nod is after terrarium, something like that.
Okay,
I forget exactly what it's called.
So the resources in the game that everybody uses as money is called Tiberium.
Tiberium. Sorry, yeah.
You know, Jim was making fun of me. Jim was making fun of me for taking notes and organizing them before this. And now I've had all of the.
I don't know.
You know, the money was called like Tommy Sarian to somebody.
Yeah, but it doesn't really matter for the purposes of explanation what the actual money was called.
Well, it's, you know, if one person has it, we have it. You know, we don't need to both have great notes.
So this was, there's just one method of money, right?
Yeah.
So if you play StarCraft or other more modern RTSs, there's different resources for spending.
Yeah.
You know, there'll be crystals and gas. In this game, there's just the one. It's terrarium.
Can I make a comment about that, though?
Sure.
It's not, what you're saying, not in, well, okay.
Yeah, I'm going to get to that. You're talking about power? Or are you going to mention power? I was going to get
But then I was thinking about like, because I'm trying to not have this be a comparison of StarCraft and Command and Conquer, which is tough to do.
Well, yeah, so it's gonna but if we do that, it's gonna lose, right?
No, but yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
And StarCraft was 98, I believe, or 97.
Okay, so it came after
regular StarCraft.
Here's what I was going to ask earlier. StarCraft.
I think it might be 97.
StarCraft is actually kind of down the line in Blizzard releases.
Diablo 1.
I was curious to find 98. out when Warcraft, Orcs, and Humans came out. If that's the first one. Because the first Warcraft might be before this. I think the graphics were even jankier. I've actually never played it.
The first Warcraft?
Yeah.
I have not. I think it's after, though. Yeah.
Are you sure? Well, are you looking it up right now? Because I could talk about something else while you do. Do you want me to talk about power?
Warcraft, Orcs, and Humans, 1994.
So before it.
Yep.
Boom. So they could have been, it's reasonable to believe they could have been taking inspiration from that game. Because there wasn't that many in that almost
it's
genre.
It's not specifically mentioned anywhere that I could find, but certainly.
Yeah. I know that when they were going to make StarCraft, I believe, I remember them saying that they did take, they played Command and Conquer. All the studios around that time played each other's games a lot.
I mean, it was a super popular game. It's the game that supposedly launched RTSs into being a legitimate genre. Yeah. So if people aren't familiar with RTSs, do you want to give them a breakdown of basically how they go? Yeah. And then we can get into maybe specificities to this game.
We probably should have done this I guess we talked about adventure games and
do it however we'd like to do it.
I mean, well, we can't go back in time and talk about how
or can we?
how Tomb Raider was a third person shooter. I was thinking about that we never touched on that once, that it was third person.
I guess.
If you never played it.
There weren't that many things that were first person at that time. Actually, that's incredibly not true because third person actually came after first person. If you think about Doom and Quake and
Wolfenstein, and all that. Yeah. So well, we can't go back,
That's
but
funny.
We're most of the time assuming that people are going to at least Google pictures of the gameplay, but we're trying to get better. So assume you could do nothing.
Oh, you got to remind me to record my gameplay and I'll do it. Because I was actually just thinking about that in the shower the other day. I was thinking about you in the shower.
We haven't figured out. So was I. That's why I thought of Acidophilus this morning. Anyway, real-time strategy. Here are the hallmarks of the style. Overhead view. Sometimes kind of, I think it's called isometric, where you're not all the way overhead. You're at like kind of an angle. So you're overhead.
Like a three-quarter?
Some kind of shit like that. You're usually using the mouse to select and move things around. And you're generally building structures and creating units to achieve some kind of tasks. Either destroy all the other buildings or destroy all the other people or find something. All the games kind of do it differently. And I'd say out of all of the, actually, interesting enough, out of all the games we've covered so far, Jim and I probably have the biggest breadth of experience playing RTSs than we do adventure games or third-person shooters.
Ooh.
Right? I would think so.
Third-person shooters for sure I play the least of. I think the most popular ones, I guess Tomb Raider, now that I've realized is a third-person shooter.
I can't even remember, but I mean, I know we haven't played that many adventure games, so it's very easy to win this category.
Well, I've played a lot of adventure games.
Have you?
If you think about I mean,
you're going to somehow bend it. You hate keeping this genre in the lines. You want it to be.
No, I mean, if you.
What did you call it last time? I still can't get over it. Procedural.
I stand by whatever I said. I don't remember. So I was actually just thinking about So what's the difference between an adventure game
Yeah.
and an RPG necessarily? An RPG implies that there's like character points and character development.
Yeah. I think
Okay.
definitely. And there's like items with stats. Stats is definitely a big part of RPGs.
I mean, you gotta love stats.
Turn-based is generally, or else it's an action RPG. Turn-based is generally
So
an RPG.
I mean, I have a lot of
ARPG,
experience in
yeah.
ARPGs.
Well, we'll eventually probably get to those games.
Those I think we're gonna save for probably some special events.
Well,
Well, the real problem is, I mean, if we could ever do, we'll
let's
talk
not-
about an
yeah.
unnamed
Guys,
third party.
let's just say
if
we
we
have-
could do a
yeah.
thing where we have a game that we really need to play that I actually fucking pre-ordered
Okay.
and I haven't played yet because I'm waiting to play it with other people.
So we won't say what it is.
Yeah, I won't fucking say what it is, but I really want to.
But I have an idea around there that isn't that. Anyway. So we explain what RTS is. That's what kind of game this is. Probably, well, I guess this is one of the most popular ones ever.
Yeah, we have
Whole
many
series.
hours playing StarCraft.
StarCraft
and
is a big
StarCraft
one by
Brood War
Blizzard.
and StarCraft 2.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. You probably don't have as many hours as I do in StarCraft
No,
2. I don't
nowhere
think you
near.
really got that much into it
No.
yet.
But definitely spent a lot of time playing StarCraft. And that's why I was saying.
You should. I mean, I know you didn't want to give StarCraft 2 a shot, but
I did. I did play it.
It is really
I did
good.
play. I'm
It
just
is
like
really
an old hipster, so I like old games that look old and feel old, and I just live in
I
just
know,
live
I
and
know.
thrive in the 90s. Probably why this podcast exists.
Now, I know. I think about often, like, whether I'm not a hipster.
Well, everyone kind of
I'm a
defines
hipster,
hipster
you know?
differently.
No, but like, I get mad when people are like,
That's
"Oh,
what hipsters
you-"
do, actually.
Yeah, they just
That's
get
a
mad.
big hallmark of being mad. And also, like,
Oh,
if
man.
if too many people like something, then you don't like it
Yeah, I
anymore.
hate it.
Hipster.
It's hard though.
I know.
'Cause I'm like, no,
No
you don't
hipster
really
wants
like it.
to think they're a hipster. That's how it works. You don't call yourself a hipster. You don't think
I
you're
don't
a hipster.
feel. I don't.
That's what they say.
Feel
See,
like a
you're
hipster,
hitting
though.
like every check.
But like, I need like a bowler, don't I?
I think you should cut. No, Jim, you're
Or like a
you're definitely
jaunty
like
chapeau.
you're like a pork pie hat kind of guy. I could see you rock
Pork pie.
rocking one
I
of
can go
those.
for like a pie made of pork.
Well, you know, I've actually been thinking about that. I want to try and make savory pies. Guys,
Yeah,
guys,
I've only
hold on,
had,
hold on.
like-
Let's all of us calm down. We're
right,
we're neither here nor there. Let's back up a step.
We're there.
We're there.
We're just not here.
Okay, let's try and get
Okay,
here.
let's
for a
get
second.
here.
Okay, we're talking about real-time strategy games, Command and Conquer. We'll talk
Right,
about
okay.
our love of
All right,
Blizzard
so-
games
so-
and pork pies later.
Yeah, so let's we'll circle back to
Yeah.
I believe I gave enough backstory and what the development of the game and stuff like that is
Yes.
like. Why don't you take the lead on giving your personal insight into your experience playing the game and the specifics of like the game functions as it relates to other RTSs, right?
Jim,
like,
I would love to.
So like for me, I was kind of I heard some weird
Jim
sounds.
sounded like a grandfather clock in the background that he's never
I know.
heard
I
before.
don't know if that was my doorbell or the TV.
Jim, this is probably a good time to tell people, if you go to cdromp.com, you can view the links for YouTube. You can watch, you could see Jim's reaction, or we'll have the links to all the other podcast things if maybe you're watching it on YouTube and you want to listen to a podcast as well. Self-plug, cdromp.com.
Are you hearing that?
No. Jim, if you're having...
Hold on. Pause. Can we can
Yes, we can
I mean, those would be
just,
edited. Pause.
just pause it here. Guys, we'll be right back.
And blow pops take 2.
Yes.
All right. So, do you want to talk about your experience actually playing the game and what things you did and didn't like about
Jim,
the actual gameplay?
I would love to do that. Well, look at my notes here, I say to myself. And the first thing, let's talk about the intro, the very pre-intro. Super awesome.
Oh yeah,
Super awesome.
I couldn't wait to talk to you about
Yeah,
that.
really cool. Okay, so here's how it works. It's basically like this futuristic loading screen that's supposed to act like it's loading you into the game, although it's animated and also at the same time actually bringing up your system stats to make it seem more real, which is really cool.
Yeah, and it's like loading graphics,
Yeah.
and like it goes like all the way, it's like 100% or something, and it's like,
And it shows
was
you,
really
what do you
cool.
call it?
And it's like kind of like a terminal view.
It is kind of like a terminal, but also there's a lot of graphics going on. It like knows
Yeah.
your resolution and starts out at the old resolution and then slowly
Yeah.
cranks it up and lets you know what it is. So I have an interesting
It's really
factoid
cool.
about that one. That was made by a Command and Conquer community member over a course of 6 months. That's
pretty cool.
because that's a remaster of how the old one used to look.
Okay.
So they totally redid it in 4K. It looked really nice. I just so happened to have a 4K monitor randomly from work.
Yeah, mine is not. I don't believe.
Well, I can confirm it looked crispy. Yo, I bet that looks crispy in the dark. Shout out hackers. So that was really good. There's a lot of cinematics. There's a lot of things going on that aren't gameplay, although there is certainly a lot of gameplay to play.
There's definitely a lot of cinematics, which are not like graphics. They did a lot of like live action stuff.
There's a mix.
Recordings.
There's a mix. So they remastered the older recordings, and I watched it in the kind of makings of special features within the options, like a side by side, and it's basically the same video except the other one looks like way more pixely. But
so it looked like, I could tell right away, it looked like they used kind of like similar like anti-aging AI, you know, like
you're saying some like kind of smoothing.
Smoothing textures and shit like that. It looked like, because I could tell like they look like when it was
too
like
smooth.
Kind of. Yeah, it looked like they were wearing a lot of makeup or something.
He might have been. I mean, he was on camera.
I know.
It's hard to say.
I wouldn't be able to tell from 95.
when you get a chance, go back in the options on the remaster. You could watch the original green screen footage of like him there, the marker card.
Oh yeah,
okay. He was one of the developers, someone that worked on the team. Back in those days, there was no actors.
You're talking about like the general that like went missing or something like that?
Oh, we played fucking different versions. We had different people.
Oh, yeah. Shit. I was the good guy.
I was the bad guy.
So I had the good guy. Yeah. He was like general...
Crap, I forgot about that. We had totally different people. I had a guy named Seth who was played by one of the devs or something whose last name was Gooch. And they had a picture of him at his desk when he like wasn't all dressed up. His acting wasn't great, but I did like it because... that was just like what they did back then. They just grabbed somebody and like, all right, you're an actor now.
So it's kind of interesting. It's similar to Myst, and where you had like a different like a faction to choose, you know, and follow along with.
How to make the decision.
So I had the good guys, and I had like a general of like the GDI or whatever it is.
Yeah, sounds like an infection.
Right. And so then he was like missing for a while, and so you were just dealing with like different attack forces. And so like so for me, I had to go eliminate the nods like air support or like air defense in each things, and then I was able to get my own air support, and then I would get like people in like a cockpit that would like come talk to me and stuff like that.
So I did like 5 missions. How many missions do you think you did about?
Yeah, 4 or 5, something like that. Yeah.
You know what? The last one I got up to, which I think I had just completed, was the air support one, but I was the other side. So I was trying to build towers to kill the air support.
Yeah, no, you probably started from a different part of Europe. I started up in like Denmark.
I was in Africa the whole time.
Oh yeah, I was in like Denmark and Finland.
I was like, is this whole fucking game in Africa? Why are we all only in Africa?
No. I got down into Belarus, and then I think one under, I forget what country's under that.
Belarus 2.
Yeah.
Or Belarus
Reawakening. Red alert. Yes. Belarus red alert.
Yeah. Oh, so that's interesting. I didn't think about that. You'd be somewhere totally different. I kind of thought you'd be on the same map.
I didn't think of it either until you said like,
So this worked out really well that we picked different factions.
I guess, except we can't really talk about any like.
Well, it's even better. We have the full picture.
Yeah.
Well, we saw different people, but we got the same vibe. It was yours was probably the same thing. Somebody that was on the team that they dragged.
So let me ask you this then.
Yes.
So I kind of know the answer to this because I was fighting against different people. But what units did you have?
I think we had very similar units because I'll fast forward to one of my other notes. I read the manual, which is 86 pages long. It's extensive. I didn't read every page, but it goes through all the units, and a lot of them are the same. They might have slightly different stats, but they're kind of in HUD heads-up display, the things you see on screen that aren't like characters and stuff. I'm explaining for the audience, not you, Jim, because I know you know. The pictures look the same for both, but they had different names, and I think the on-screen characters might have looked slightly different. But.
All right, so let me contradict that.
Sure.
Right. So I, as the UN forces, I had a minigunner, an engineer, and a grenadier.
Okay,
that's what I got up to.
I had like a machine gun man.
What I experienced from the other side was a machine gun man and like a rocket
man.
Rocket man. Yeah. And so and for your vehiculars, I saw there was like a tank that was like an Abrams tank.
I don't know my tanks that well, but.
It's like, you know, J.J. Abrams.
I know Sherman tank. It's like that's all I know. And Panzer tank.
Yeah. You know Sherman?
Yeah, Sherman.
Yeah, it's like that. And you guys had like a warthog, like Halo.
Yeah, like I think they called it a buggy of some kind.
Right. And so I had a like a Hummer.
Yeah.
And like a not a UAV. What the hell are they called?
Oh, it's like a protected
tank.
vehicle. Protected.
Yeah, I forget what the acronym is.
Armored
tank
vehicle.
That can,
yeah, something like that. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about because I was just spent the whole time destroying them on the opposite side.
I spent my whole time destroying you.
I don't like the sound of that. Well, let me tell you something about this. This is the perfect time to mention. Here's one of the things I found very interesting in this game that differed from StarCraft and other games of the genre that I've played, and it really pissed me off. If you're using a very heavy vehicle, let's say a tank, you can run over and insta-kill squish ground forces.
I actually fucking
hated it because the goddamn tanks wouldn't do what I wanted because I didn't learn the controls well enough to know there's a force move command.
Neither did
I think it's like control click plus or some shit like that.
So let me take this time to intervene.
Yes.
Okay.
Please.
I did not learn any of the controls.
Right.
As I'm wont to do.
As predicted.
Yeah. So the first couple of missions didn't go so well for me because I didn't know how to do anything.
Not an easy game.
It didn't give me any preface in terms of controls or what to do, really. So eventually I realized that this like platform looking car, I don't know if you had a similar car, could like turn into a mobile base.
Yeah. Could you figure out how to close it back up or can you not do that?
No, I don't know. But I did learn through trial and error, or mostly error, is that there's a selling mode. And where you could sell your base and then you can't produce any more units and you just lose.
There's a selling mode and there's a repair mode.
Yeah, so I couldn't really figure out how to do that. Eventually, I kind of figured out how to control the units by like grouping them and telling them where to move. But it's not the same like as in StarCraft, where there's different like actions you can give the units that at least that I found through experience, not through the manual.
Well, there is, but we just didn't know how to easily do it.
Right. Okay, fine. So it's not intuitive in any way like it is in StarCraft, where it has in the HUD what specific action you'd like for a group.
They did not have that.
Your units
you had to know the keystrokes.
Yeah, so I didn't. All I knew was left click and right click. And I learned that right click lets you deselect whatever you're currently selected, whatever units you have selected.
So it gave you an option in the options to do classic style or new style. The new style.
I didn't even get that far.
The classic style was where you send units out with your left click, and new style is where you send them out with your right click, which is more like StarCraft. So they realized that people were going to go fucking, or I don't remember which way it is, one way or the other.
Now, what about Taiga style?
Taiga style. But yeah, because they realized that nowadays people are going to go fucking insane because every single RTS has the same mouse controls, and Command and Conquer from back in the day is swapped. So they gave you the option to change it. But I forced myself to play with the old controls just to, as a hipster, be very unhappy while doing it, but also be doing it the correct way, which is a nerd thing. So I have to do things the correct way. Okay, so and also on top of what you were saying, a couple other controls that were in there, and I have to just say they're different from StarCraft, but it doesn't matter either way. If you double clicked on a certain kind of unit, you could select all of that kind.
Yes, I did learn that.
You could select a lot of people. I don't think there was even a limit.
Oh, yeah. I was like, I wonder how many they'll let me do. Where in StarCraft, you could do 16 at a time, I think.
It depends on the type of unit. But yeah, there's a limit.
But the units, when they're stronger units, they group them into blocks to represent
like 4
shares
or whatever,
of one anyway. Yeah. Like an Archon would be 4.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, I don't know if there is a limit.
I don't know if there was. I at one point created a very massive army and I was able to control them all. Oh yeah. But they all move in different directions, and they won't push other units out of the way. So if you have a tank down here, obviously people only listening can't see what I'm doing with my hands. But if you have a tank to the south, and in one level I had a small bridge was blocking where I needed to go into the next area, and I had some units that were on the other side of the bridge, but not blocking the bridge necessarily. But these tanks behind it thought I did, so they had to go. They under their own volition went like out and around.
Yeah.
And in some maps, I don't know if it was the same for you, some maps didn't give me a mini map to track my units.
I have comments on that.
Oh, you can enable it?
No. Well, yes and no. Okay. So I have a note here that says, no map sucks. And then I have a note later that says, oh, there is a map. And I was very confused.
Levels.
Yeah. So then I found out that there is a map if you install I can't remember what it's called. It was like kind of like the ComSat station. I think it might have been called that. That enables the minimap. I saw
that, yeah. But in some levels, you're not built. Your job is not to build buildings.
Well, then you don't
it's
have
just to build units.
But that's
right.
what controls
So it depends on the mission, right? I did see that if you build like the ComSat,
kind of fucking annoying.
You get permanent vision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's also, we should probably, this is probably a good time to explain something in a lot of games like this and others in RPGs. It's called Fog of War. Basically, when you start the game, you're on a whole big map and you're only able to see kind of what's near your little radius. And as you walk, and everything's dark, like you can move all around the screen, all over the whole map, but you can't see anything. And as you walk, you kind of open up the Fog of War and you can see more of the map. Now,
right, so it starts to reveal itself, like a black cloud starts to unreveal itself,
and start making paths.
See vision
almost
of the map.
Imagine like an anthill as it's making like the little paths. Not an anthill. The inside of an anthill.
I know what you mean. Ant colony.
Farm, yeah, kind of like that. Yeah. And so games do two different ways. There's way one where you have the view of the map that you're slowly eating your way towards to be able to see the map, but you can't see what units are moving around there unless you have people there. Or you have the command and conquer way where
active vision.
Is that what it's called?
I think so. Active vision. So you have a unit has specific vision depending on the unit class and stuff like that. It depends on the game, right? But in other games like in Command and Conquer, I guess they didn't think that deeply into it.
Or they just didn't want
permanent.
Yeah, could have been a design choice. Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, I don't know how long that's been around. Considering there was only so many RTSs before that. I don't know how long that function of the game has been around at all, where you have to like discover that part of the map in order for you to be able to have any visibility.
But that's certainly a big part of the gameplay, and especially with Jim saying the fact that you don't have a mini map all the time, and you could lose the mini map, and you can't see everything to begin with. It can get very confusing.
I think that's just a function of the single player. When they were developing this game, supposedly they had multiplayer functionality in mind, right? They wanted it to be a 1-on-1. I don't know about 2-on-2 or anything like that, but they wanted it to be a multiplayer game instead of just playing against a computer or just doing like single player missions,
which I think was pretty new at the time. I think they added multiplayer to the second Warcraft, which probably came out around the same time as this, I would have to guess, seeing as the first one came out a couple years before.
I'm not re-Googling.
No, don't re-Google. We'll just go off that because Warcraft is an episode for another day. But yes, meant to be played both single player and multiplayer. We didn't play multiplayer. At least I didn't.
No.
Okay. We probably could have. We didn't. I also looked, which was pretty interesting, at the screenshots of what multiplayer looked like back in the day. So you had this like chat windowy looking thing in total Windows 95. There's no like nice looking graphics or HUD or anything like that, like a BattleNet in StarCraft, you might know. And again, apologize to everyone who's never played StarCraft because we're going to continue to mention it.
They should apologize to themselves. Really.
Go apologize to yourself while you play. But yeah, and it just
it's kind of weird. Like StarCraft is the lens in which we view RTSs.
Yeah,
like entirely.
Well, I think it's like that for like whatever game you liked the most or was the most you feel is the most revolutionary. Like when you're talking about 3D games in like the 90s and then like Super Mario 64 blows everyone's asshole out. Well, it's so good.
Yeah. So it's between Super Mario 64 and Banjo-Kazooie in the 3D platformer.
Well, I mean like
pantheon, and of course Donkey Kong 64.
Well, I mentioned Super Mario 64 because at the time it was kicking everyone's ass. Like everything around at the time didn't look half as good as that. Because I was just reading something about Bubsy 3D, and they like had no idea that Super Mario 64 was going to look so good, and it made made them look like
Bubsy 3D was what, Sega Game Gear or something?
No,
what was Bubsy on? That was Sega, or is that Atari's
CD.
Lynx?
No. I think if it's Sega CD, if anything.
But anyway, we're getting very far off track. But that was Sega's IP, right? Was Bubsy? I had it right the first time.
Yes, I think
they were looking for a new mascot.
Yes, that could. They did. I think they did that a couple times, or it could have been PlayStation. Who knows? Doesn't matter. We're getting off track. That's for if you're into that kind of thing, go on Angry Video Game Nerd. He does platform stuff, and I'm sure he has a podcast. Anyway, so we were talking about.
He does. They actually, Cinemassacre just started a podcast.
I see. I was saying,
not just
I'm
started,
sure he does. Yeah,
like maybe a month ago.
He knows what he's talking about.
I've been meaning to watch it. Yeah. So sorry.
So we view the world of RTS through the lens of StarCraft just because we think it's great and we've played it a lot. Anyway, okay, we talked about Fog of War, talked about the map, we've been talking about controls. One thing about the controls that we didn't mention that would have been interesting that I didn't do is you can assign teams, it's called. This is another complicated thing on the keyboard with the mouse where you could select a group of units, assign it to a key number, and then you could use the keys to select those units by pressing the buttons.
Right.
That probably would have been helpful. So what's interesting is that not only is there a lot of kind of different commands and stuff that you could use for the game that probably made it easier. The first 3 levels for each faction actually have like full detailed walkthroughs in the manual, which is interesting. And they tell you like how to do. Okay, now it doesn't go like, you know, step by step by step, but it gives you big pictures like, oh, you're going to want to start building
tell you to
more.
like 6 pool or something.
It doesn't say like click the thing, then click the second thing, but it says like you probably want to be exploring. Here's how you should scout. Okay, next you want to build some units. So I think it's a nice thing to do for people that have no idea what the fuck's going on and really care about trying to know what's going on.
So does it give it any sort of I didn't look at the manual at all, right? And I probably won't for any of these games ever. Yeah. But did it give you any insight into like the unit versus unit strength?
Yes.
Or like micro versus macro strategies?
I can't talk about micro versus macro strategy, but there's a whole ton of numbers and charts and stats and stuff like that. Very cool. So there was a lot of stuff. So yeah, if you wanted to get real nerdy and complicated with it, you could.
So I noticed that you could like hover over a unit or whatever, and it'll give you the basic rundown. It'll say like strong versus infantry.
Yeah. That was when you were going to
like
make
for my
it.
grenadiers was like strong versus infantry and strong versus buildings, right? Or whatever the other.
Adding the strategy in there to make you like, oh, well, who am I going to? What kind of units do they have? I'll use this kind, which is stronger against that and weaker against that, to kind of have to do the balance. What I'll say here before I forget to mention it, I thought that this game in its single player and its strategy was much more difficult than StarCraft. I felt you can't just wing it.
Yeah, so to the first couple of missions, I failed like 2 times.
I failed
in a row.
a bunch of times. I was like, "What the fuck? I'm getting my fucking ass kicked here."
I mean, it really didn't benefit me that I looked at nothing and no controls, and I didn't know how to do anything.
You were just going off. Well, I played StarCraft, and I'm sure I can fucking figure this shit out.
Yeah, I was going off of intuition, and I kind of wanted to experience it as if I played it for the first time.
I mean, I didn't read the manual till after.
Okay.
Yeah, till just before we did this.
Okay. So I just wanted to see like. I buy the game in 1995 and I go and try and play it. But what it's like.
If you did buy the game in 1995, you probably would have read the manual.
No, I wouldn't.
Yes, you would have, because you're Jim now in 2021. But back then, I remember you got the game. First thing you did is look at the manual.
I did like looking at Game Shark things and reading.
You probably would have. Now games have got a lot more intuitive, and they don't even come with manuals anymore.
So do I have to get in touch with like 4-year-old me?
Yes, I would love that. But yeah, well, I know for me back as a kid, not only was it to like figure out how to play, which I probably didn't even really use that much when I was really younger, but there was always like pictures of the bad guys, their names, the description. It got you like more into what was going on, because it's not like they're doing exposition of the individual characters in the game. Like, this is Dwayne, he's a Marine. Like, that's in the manual.
So do you think if they had the memory space, they would have done it in older games?
There might have been more.
Now that I think of it, they didn't do it. Like, I don't know if it's a function of the era or if it's a function of necessity that they didn't include walkthroughs or something like that.
Well, when you put too much in people's way to stop them from just playing, or things start to get like too clunky, like having in the manual is like, if you care about that, it's here.
Right, but are we only viewing it that in retrospect because they didn't have the physical room in games to include it?
It's hard to say. I think it differs in each game, the decisions they had to make or didn't. I did notice it said you had to have a double speed CD-ROM drive to play this. I know we mentioned about CD-ROM speeds. Well, you didn't read the manual. That's all this kind of shows.
I would. Well, yeah, I wasn't.
Well,
sure
like I said, only one of us has to do each of anything. We don't have to have both of us read the manual. Both of us take notes, as long as somebody has it.
I'm not going to read the manual.
Actually, I'll talk about the other things that I had here. There's also apparently location bookmarks that you could set, and they will bring you around the screen based on the bookmarks on your keyboard. So if you knew how to play, you could be really whipping around this thing way better than we probably were, because I was clunking and clanking.
Yeah, so location bookmarks is interesting.
So one of the things I found annoying is I had a hard time moving around the map very quickly. Like on StarCraft, I know how to use the minimap to get around, but I found when I was trying to use the minimap to go look at something, I would end up sending units there, which I didn't want to do. Maybe it's just like a misunderstanding of how to interact with the actual usage of the cursor. But I found it annoying to find your way around. Although one thing that I did find interesting with their minimap is they gave you a variety of views on a minimap, which I've never seen before. You could look at it there if you clicked on the minimap button, it would cycle through all the different views. You could view a a zoomed in version, which kind of moved as you moved, a zoomed out version that showed you everything, and then there was some kind of black background, I guess less information version if you wanted to, I guess, see big picture things like the resources on the screen. I
didn't notice any of that.
Yeah. I was doing a lot of clicking.
I only eventually when I got to like mission 4 or
you also got
like
further than me, I think.
Maybe it's a like your map is now you're able to fully zoom or something like that.
Interesting.
So I could zoom my whole map, like my actual view. I mean, I don't know if I could do this before.
Screen?
I didn't try. Yeah, I didn't try.
I never tried zooming out.
But it said your view is now fully scrollable or something. I forget exactly what it said. Tried doing that. But then I was able to like fully zoom out, so it was like playing Civ or something. You know?
Interesting.
Or Age of Empires. I didn't zoom out because obviously I need to see.
Yeah.
I zoomed out like a little bit and I was like, that's enough of that.
That's interesting. Yeah, I never did that.
I zoomed back
I remember the first time I played Warcraft 3 and I did that and I thought it was so cool because you could get like all the way down on the ground or something like that, very close. And I was like,
zoom all the way
awesome.
In. Yeah.
So I didn't know you could do that. I wonder if they had that in the original, if it was only because the 4K had the ability to do that.
Sorry, I don't
remaster, not the 4K.
Yeah, I know.
Another thing in terms of gameplay that I wasn't used to, and now it's, I guess, I don't know if it's good or bad, but I couldn't remember any of what it was like to play Red Alert 2. I used to play that. Julio turned me on to that game, Red Alert 2, which is a really good game. You can't. Okay, so first.
Wait, Command and Conquer Red Alert 2?
So the two things that are kind of linked together. In other games that I've played, you would click on an individual building, and then it would allow you to choose to build either units or buildings based on that. In Command and Conquer, you have all of it accessible to you all the time. You don't have to click individual buildings. You could be somewhere on the other side of the map and be creating things, and they'll just go. The second thing, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. Maybe I like it, maybe I don't. Not sure. The second thing that I definitely didn't like.
I think that's a good way to approach it. It's
easier than having to go back.
And from an early RTS, I mean, you don't. Yeah, I can't blame them for not having later game functionalities.
I'm saying that's not necessarily a good or bad thing.
Yeah, fair
I'm
enough.
just thinking about whether I liked it or not. Either way, the other thing that it didn't have, you couldn't queue up creation of things. So you could only create one unit at a time or one building at a time, and you couldn't just say, all right, I'm going to add 2 and then I'll come back to it. You had to wait till it was finished. It wouldn't let you do that.
Yeah,
which was annoying, I thought. But again, could have been a limitation, could have been a design choice. Who knows? But that's just what it was. I found that very strange and hard to get used to.
I did appreciate, I mean, that they had different speeds and functions of the units and the unit balancing. I mean, I didn't get a full understanding of it, right? But I did appreciate there was some level of unit balancing where it's like this unit is fast, this unit is slow and strong.
Speaking of fucking fast and slow. Jesus, some of them were goddamn fast and some of them were slow. Yeah. And this is one of the things. And I had this phrase in my head, and it could have been a different game. I think that's what it's from. And again, hearkening back to the book about Blizzard, where they were talking about enjoying playing Command and Conquer and slowly snaking their way through the map. And I kept thinking about that, and I started doing it. And what I mean by that is keeping your units closer together, which means like having to manage in micro versus macro, the big picture, micro, the little individual people moving around, to not have your vehicles move too far away from your ground troops because they walk at totally different speeds.
Yeah.
Which I was not used to having to do, and also not used to having to keep people together for the strength of that. In StarCraft, it's way more willy-nilly. People survive way better. You don't have to worry about that.
Yeah,
I found myself, maybe for me, that for my own personal, the only way I can beat the goddamn levels is keep my people close together, which required a lot of corralling and adjusting who goes where for sure.
Yeah.
So for you, it wasn't as much. You didn't feel that you absolutely had to keep people.
No, I
clustered.
did, but I noticed it kind of right away, the differences in speed, like controlling a mixed group of people, how annoying it was to like set like a target or whatever, like here's where I want you guys to go, and then I have to wait 30 seconds after that for all of my units to get there, to where it's like, okay, let me pick just my fastest road units and I'll go scout for a little bit, and then maybe I can aggro a guy or two and bring him back to my ground troops that'll take him out, or use my cars to block off my ground troops or something like that and use them as like a defense system in some way. Although they weren't that good at controlling, but you could do it in a little bit.
At all the controls, I wish I had learned the force move and force attack. I would have liked, because I was desperately trying to get my tanks to squash people, and sometimes they just didn't want to do it correctly, and the computer was very fucking good at doing it.
So yeah, it was. So I didn't look at any of the controls. Obviously, I mentioned. Yeah. So I was relying on just click and drag, selecting a gaggle of units, and then clicking in a direction and hoping that also means attack. So a lot of the time I was doing super microing, and where I was telling all these people to attack a specific person, but I would notice that like on their way, if that person dies, they'll just stop moving entirely.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
But like also, if I tell them to go to this location and they get there, they sometimes don't naturally just start. They're not in like an attack posture as well. But if they're like attacking a person and then another person is there, if they're like in attack mode already, they'll continue to attack. So it was, for me, not knowing the controls, and again, that's my own fault. Yeah. So it felt a bit ambiguous as to what exactly my units were going to do at any given point.
Yeah. So the cursor would kind of change when you're on top of things to attack, and if it is on top of things to move. Oh, here's a fucking annoying thing. If you have a group of units selected and you're trying to send them somewhere and you accidentally hit on one of your own units, it doesn't go to it, but deselects everyone. Like, for fuck's sake.
It's so insensitive. The cursor that you have is like, it's so hard to bring units close to each other, because like the hitbox of like one of your own units is so
very
big
squarey
that it's hard to group your units together. You end up making like such a huge radius of units because you can't group them tightly, because you go and try and select the space next to where one of your units is, and you end up just selecting him. And instead of telling your unit to go even walk to that person like you do in another game, which I won't mention for the 50th time, you actually just deselect the person you had before and select this new one.
That fucking drove me nuts. And then I'd get like...
Yeah, it was very annoying.
I got stuck on the... I think it was when I was trying to do repair mode, and I couldn't figure out how the fuck to get off of it until I realized, like, oh, you do the other click and it'll get you off there.
Yeah, so I was using right click a lot to just like make sure I didn't have anyone selected before I knew it. So I was like left click, right click, left click, right click. I was like, let me just make sure I start fresh before I do any command, so I don't do anything wrong.
I can definitely understand that. One unit that I thought was really interesting, and I'm curious to get your take on, the engineer. Why don't you explain how that unit works?
Yeah, so it's a high cost unit. So, again, you only have the one resource, Telesium or whatever it's called.
Terabithia. Please say it correctly.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry. The mist of Terabithia, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. Yes. So in comparison, so I don't know about you, but mine was, depending on the level, it was about 80 for a Marine, I'll call them. Infantrymen.
I wasn't really keeping track as much as I would have, because I feel like I don't know if it was smaller to see or something. It was...
No, it depends. It depended on what the flow of my money was, how tightly I was looking at it. But so just for comparison, right? So I had minigunner, I believe they were called, was 80, which is your standard
like
infantryman. Yeah. I had a grenadier, which would lob grenades. He was about 128 to 180, somewhere around there.
Monies.
And then I had an engineer, which is about like 320 to about 450, depending on the level.
I think I know the reason why I wasn't attuned to how much things cost, is because when you go to click on them to buy them, it doesn't keep the value on screen of what they're worth. It's only when you hover over, it's just a quick pop up and then it's gone. So even if you have the build people screen up all the time, you can't see what they are, which is not great.
So,
in my opinion,
the grenade people, their function is they can attack from a little bit further away, but the syncopation of their attacks, or the pacing of their attacks, is very far off, and they just lob grenades instead of like shooting a regular gun. Right? And the infantrymen obviously have to get a little closer, which opens them up to attack, but they can do like a constant stream of attack, but do a little bit less damage.
I'm giving a take.
Now that, yeah, obviously. It's all a part of unit balancing. But then the engineer doesn't have any attack, and all they do is
a briefcase. Toolbox.
He has a briefcase.
Toolbox.
I wouldn't call that an attack.
No, it's not.
So what they do is take over an enemy structure.
Instantly.
So I guess it's, one engineer to one structure. And I don't know what happens, because it seems like sometimes there's an enemy that's occupying a structure.
You just marks him, and then he lives there now.
I guess he just like ganks.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, because if you blow up an enemy building, there's like the people inside.
Yeah,
like
so I don't know what happens to them, and
they die of natural
specific
causes.
mention. Yeah, natural causes.
Briefcase to the
so
head.
you can use them to take over an enemy building, and obviously that means you don't have to use your units and expose them to gunfire while shooting another building to destroy it.
If you can get the engineer in there.
Right, so you have to kind of ferry him in the back. I actually ended up only successfully using one engineer.
Really? I did
all of my
it
levels.
pretty often as I made my way through.
I didn't
Out of
because
desperation.
I enjoy destroying all their buildings. So I was just kind of having fun destroying all their buildings.
That's probably where I should mention the sound. Okay. So you destroying things is a good place to bring in that there's a lot of civilians and civilian structures, and it makes no difference whether you kill them or not. So when you start out, at least, and I started out knowing I was a bad guy. I was just like marauding, and they give a really great death scream. They're like, ah!
Bob, here's the thing: as the good guys, I'm allowed to kill the civilians because it's for the greater good.
I've done my good turn.
Right. This is for the greater good. I can kill civilians.
Yeah, they're bad civilians, and you're not penalized at all, which is interesting.
No, there's no penal.
There's no
at
good
all.
or bad in Command & Conquer. It's if it moves, you can kill it.
There's essentially, so you end the level. We could just say this, right? You end the level, and then it gives you like a recap, and it gives you like efficiency and leadership, and money left over.
Those were interesting. I did like that screen though.
Yeah. No,
Unlike fucking Tomb Raider,
all
like,
of the graphics,
and then you're frozen. And it goes level done.
Still screen, yeah. Oh, good job.
Which,
God,
don't even get me started on that one.
Yeah. So everything in this game I actually really enjoyed. I mean, the music and the sound design in general was really dope.
Yeah.
The music was really good. I couldn't, obviously sing any of the songs for you, but it was kind of like driving and like kind of metal.
It was good.
And like electric a little bit.
I was thinking of that comment because when we talked about catchy and like if it's catchy, did you catch it? Because I was thinking like, oh, these are pretty good tunes.
No, I was worried about. I've thought about it a few times over the past week. I was like, oh man, I'm gonna tell him that I like the music, and he's go, okay, sing it for me.
Well, I thought about that same thing, and I was like, well, I can't sing it, but I did think it had its own vibe. Yeah, there was like rock in some parts, like I'm a robot man. We could have had different music.
I'm a robot
Didn't
man.
he say something like that?
I don't know.
So we could have had different music too. Keep in mind. The different forces. But at some point, there was one kind of like techno-y song where the guy's like, I'm a robot man, over and over.
So this is like Robotron music?
Well, you're the master of Robotron. I don't know what that
I mean, Robotron 64, one of the best like video game soundtracks.
I've only been near it. I can't comment. But I did write down in all caps.
I guess it depends on how much you like intense electronic music.
True. I wrote down under sound, rockin' tunes in all caps.
Yeah.
So definitely the house was a rockin'. That's for sure. So we could say that.
But do come and knock.
Yeah, and actually do go on check that out. And as Jim mentioned, the sounds were all good. I had no issues with any of the sound effects. I even after I'd finished my 3 hours for funsies, I switched everything to remaster, and I rocked it and with like bonus tracks, and I rocked with all the new sound and music and stuff. I could tell the difference with the new music just because it sounded newer, but we're doing kind of newer covers of the old stuff, which is cool. The sound, I think it's the kind of thing that I didn't feel like I was missing using the older sounds. It sounded good, but the older sound was fine. So that wasn't a huge difference. I think that's what we talked about the sound there. It had like good sound and noises between all like the screens, like the menus and everything like that. Yeah. Oh, so there was a save feature, and there was apparently an auto save, but mine never seemed to work right. So I was always saving during campaign mode.
Yeah, so I would end when I finished a level, and it would tell me your progress is saved.
You see, I thought that. And then one time that happened to me and I exited out. When I came back, the level was unbeaten. So I just learned not to trust it. But maybe I did something in a weird way.
But I don't know about for you. So I had like the way, I mean, I guess maybe it's just the way that Europe is structured, but I guess Africa in the same, is that it gave me different options to go. There was many forks in the road. Yes. So it was like, you can attack Romania or you can attack, Belarus.
I was like, you can attack
whatever.
Chad. Chad, get over here, Chad.
Or Derek.
Come on, Chad. Go and fuck around, Chad. Yes, there was two options.
So I wouldn't foresee that as a particular problem if it had not saved on me. I would just go do the other one then.
Well, yeah, I was just like, all right, I'll just redo it. What I did start doing.
Mildly perturbed.
So here's kind of a way that you could have also, and I think we talked about this. Oh yeah, in the Tomb Raider episode. So at some point, I realized that I can, within the functionality of the game, I could save whenever I want, which means that if I continually kind of manually save, especially when I get through some hairy parts, I don't have to replay levels over entirely if I lose or if something goes horribly bad. So I can kind of inch my way through the levels and keep replaying save states.
I do that with other games.
I didn't do it a lot, but it was helpful because it wasn't an easy game. It wasn't an easy game.
It was not. I played it on the normal.
Yeah, I did. So did I. I did normal
difficulty. I didn't want to make it too easy for myself, but I wanted to give it, an accurate portrayal of the difficulty of the game. So I just did like normal. I figured that's probably where most people play. I honestly
thought normal was going to be easier. I thought you really did have to fucking get your wits about you.
I did enjoy to an extent that it was difficult. Yeah. Once you get past the frustration of the difficulty. I enjoyed the fact that it was difficult by nature.
I will say
that's kind of what you want from a strategy game. You need to have some sort of strategy.
That's very true. I will say out of all the games that we played, the 3 hours passed the fastest for this one. And I'll tell you the way that I did it.
I think you might be right.
I did it I did it in 2 sessions. The first session was 2 hours, which flew by pretty fast, and the second session was 1 hour. Which didn't fly as fast, maybe because as it was harder, I was kind of stuck on the same level a couple times. But either way, definitely enjoyed it. I definitely think it's still worth playing. My only hesitation would be if someone said they wanted to play a 90s, old school RTS, could I, in good conscience, tell them to play Command and Conquer and instead of StarCraft?
No, I wouldn't, but I think that's probably subjective.
I agree. I don't think Command and Conquer is without merit. I don't think it paled in comparison. I think there was a lot of differences. I think with this remastered,
I think it's very meritorious.
I think with this remastered, and they fixed a lot of little things that might bother you now. You have the ability to go back and forward if you want it to look newer or look older. You could use your whole monitor, which is super nice. I mean, and StarCraft Remastered, I think, has all these same functions as well. But it's really nice. I think it's really nice being able to use your whole big screen natively. Everything's working nice, but also be playing the old game.
Right. So I think as life as in literature, I would recommend this game to anyone who wants to play an old school RTS.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it was good. I enjoyed it.
I mean,
will I continue to play it? Probably not, because we have this podcast and we have to continue playing other games.
Right.
But I will enjoy
just
talking
because of the
to
function
people
of my
about
life.
it. I will enjoy talking to people about it that have played this. And I genuinely enjoyed when I felt like I was kind of teleported back to the 90s when I was playing this, because like the actor being one of the devs, and the green screen and like the cinematics were kind of crappy, but then like some parts were really good, and it was good. I can understand why this game was such a hit at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed watching the crappy cinematics and like the live action, like the acting, or it's like a super close up on just their head because I know they don't have a production studio and they just have one lady in a fighter pilot mask. Like
amazing.
No, and I was like, oh man, this is peak cinematic right here.
I wonder how much. And you didn't mention anything regarding a timeline, how long they had to make it, or money or anything.
I didn't see anything specific. Maybe it's just not.
And there's also doesn't seem to be one main kahuna for this studio then as well.
No,
like a Ron Gilbert type.
Well, Bob, we can't. I guess we're going to talk about Ron Gilbert.
Yeah, he has to come up in every podcast.
We're the Gilberts.
The Gilbertos.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, in general and in summation, I recommend and I approve.
Excellent. Well, this is probably a perfect point to mention. If you have a game that you think we should play, we want to know what it is and we want to know why. Give us your little backstory and why you think it's so great, or maybe it's a game that you've never played and want to play. Send us an email at theboys@cdromp.com. If you want to check out all of our old episodes in either YouTube video form or on your favorite podcasting platform, you could just go to the website, cdromp.com, or search for CD-ROMP in any of those things that you usually find things to watch and listen. So the last portion of each episode contains the other brother who didn't recommend this game or make us play this game to give a game that we're going to play next week. And now I haven't done the back research into how we're going to get it and play it. So that we're going to have to work on our own, because normally I make sure it's on Steam and stuff like that. But I do know what game I want to play, and I had been thinking about it all week. And I know, because I Googled it, that the date's correct to fall into the podcast. Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, if there's a will, there's a way.
Figure it out. I think we'll be able to figure it out. Okay. The game we're going to be playing next week is The Sims 1.
The original
Sims came out in the year 2000.
Yeah, we could figure that out.
There's got to be a way to do that, and that's
we could figure that one out.
I originally wanted to do one of the
that one I will look forward to.
I originally wanted to do one of the older ones in the series, but I kind of couldn't make up my mind, and we'll probably get back to there. But I think it's just so different than anything that we've been doing. A lot more. Well, you know what? I won't talk about it now. We'll talk about it in the next one. But very interesting in terms of a game. By Maxis is the company.
What's our date cutoff for games and for
so
video
it's
games?
CD-ROMP, a brotherly stroll through the PC games of the 90s and early 2000s. So I'd say anything before 2005 could probably be considered early 2000s, right?
Okay, because at 2005 we round up.
I would have to imagine that's mid 2000s, not early 2000s. But as I mentioned, for anything, let me just do a quick aside. This podcast is made for the people that love these games and love talking about this nerdy shit like we do. So if there's a large horde of people banging on the door that want us to play a game from 2006, well, we may bend the knee. I mean, we'll make sure we try and stay on topic most of the time. But if we're all getting a little happy gruntle from that, we'll fucking do it. Just like the
I don't know if
just
I
like the
over anything.
Will we ever play Donkey Kong 64 if 3 people make a comment about it in a YouTube video? We don't know. But we're up for anything.
I mean, I'll play Donkey Kong 64 under my own volition.
He'll challenge himself. Yeah. So that's it. I don't think this will be the only game in the Command & Conquer series that we'll end up playing. Hopefully this podcast will be going for years and years, and there's plenty to choose from.
Maybe.
And we'll make our way. One thing I will say, and you seem to be kind of following at this point too, I think it's a good idea, the trend that we're doing, that if we're going to pick a game from a popular series, we'll start at the first one.
Yeah, I mean,
we followed the trend. Everything except the first episode where we jumped into the middle of monkeys.
I tried to.
No. You almost tried to, because you weren't starting at the very first game.
No, I did.
No,
try
you
to
tried
start
to
at the
start
first
at
game.
I thought you tried to start at the second game.
No, I tried to start at the first game.
So it's my fault, really. Again, still,
it is your fault. Yeah. But I will blame myself secondarily for not verifying. Me. Yeah, for not fact checking you. Yeah. You went and you're like, okay, I found it, and you downloaded it. And I because I wasn't that familiar with the series, I didn't realize the distinction between Curse of Monkey Island and Secret of Monkey Island and Escape from Monkey Island.
Now that we're the Gilbertos, we know much better.
Yeah. Well, now we know the Ronnie G's.
And I purposely made sure I picked a non-Ronnie G game, because we gotta let him breathe.
Well, so I can pick one then.
In theory, you can. We at least we at least took 2 games in between.
Whew.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let him breathe. Let it air.
He's breathing
air
now, so we can bring him back down underwater.
Jim, do you have any final words to wrap this up for the kids?
I in fact do not.
No, me neither. So we'll catch you guys if you want to play along. Play The Sims 1 for at least 3 hours this week, and we'll catch you next week, and we'll chat about it. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. All right.
Yeah. Good
night.
Catch
you later, Warehouse.
Godspeed.
Catch you on the flippity flip. Peace.
See you later, Warehouse.